Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Science, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. I'm your host, shamanic astrologer Erik Roth, and I'm excited to do another episode here in April of 2022 about another ongoing astrological feature, which is, of course, happens every single year, involves the solar and lunar eclipses that take place here on planet Earth. And we get the privilege of depending on where we're located, depending on where we're residing, we get the privilege of being able to witness these over time. And each eclipse has its own value, its own importance, and I'm going to be describing the meaning of these particular eclipses. So let's kind of dive into that and see what's really going on here. Okay, this is upcoming eclipse season, episode 34 of Science, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. And this is where we go into there's 2 eclipse seasons per year on average. And this one takes us into the end of April and the middle part of May. So is the first of the 2 eclipse seasons. And so I'll be doing another episode specifically about the second eclipse season in the fall. So stay tuned for that. And to get further updates, subscribe and like this channel, and you'll certainly be notified of upcoming episodes, as well as I announce these episodes typically with my newsletter. So you're welcome to go to my website, spiralnexus.com. And there's a link there to put your email in and to get updates from me through my newsletter, which also includes articles and events that I do. All right, so let's dive into episode 34. And what are the eclipses and other information we're going to talk about here? Well, there's 2, April 30th and May 15th, a partial solar eclipse on the 30th of April and a total lunar eclipse on the 15th. 15/16th, depending on where you are on the planet. There's a bit of an overlap there. We're going to share about the archetypes, signs of Taurus and Scorpio, and talk about the meaning of these eclipses. And I'm going to be sharing an interpretation, as well as the Sabian symbols of each of these 2 eclipses. In addition to that, like I have been in the past, been sharing about the what it looks like, what part of the night sky, what part of the sky these eclipses are located. So there'll be an image for each of these 2 eclipses and what that will look like there. All right, so here are the 2 coming up here in the April-May season. There's a partial solar eclipse on April 30th, 2022 at 10 degrees, 28 minutes in Taurus. And this will be visible in Central and Southern South America. So it's really all in the Southern Hemisphere and even down into part of Antarctica as well. That particular eclipse has a conjunction with Uranus. And of course, that's where Taurus is right now and has been for a few years. And then on May 15th, 2022, we have a total lunar eclipse, and the moon will be at 25 degrees, 18 minutes Scorpio. The sun, of course, opposite that. Also is called a full moon eclipse. This is visible in North and South America, the Eastern US, Mexico, and South America. That we'll be able to see all of the total lunar eclipse, and especially because the Southern Hemisphere, which we'll talk about here, is actually in the time where it's it's in the autumn for them, so they're having less sunlight, and so they get a greater window of the moon in the sky. So that's why that takes place there, and more in fullness than we do here. All right. Let's look at the archetypes of Taurus and Scorpio. All right, for Taurus, here are the qualities. This is an archetype that is also, related to the Garden of Eden. It is the end result of the fruitful bounty of Mother Earth, the intimate personalness of the five physical senses, savoring of the comforts, pleasures, and sensuality of our physical expression. Also related to this is being an epicure and knowing what is good. Taurus desires to explore pleasures and comforts thoroughly. It is an archetype that is, at its essence, a true receiver. Now, there are parts of Taurus, and especially with the Uranian component, which I've discussed a bit on last couple of years in various ways on this channel, as well as through the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, about how Taurus is also, Uranus is a powerful change agent. And with its alignment with Saturn last year and also this year, it's showing us too our conveniences, our relationship to conveniences, and the challenge that it places upon the beauty of the earth. How much convenience do we want, and how much are we going to sacrifice of the earth to get those conveniences? That is a question that we can all ask ourselves. And Taurus is at the epicenter of this particular eclipse and where Uranus is located. Let's take a look at Scorpio. The qualities of Scorpio: it's the archetype of the shaman or the sorceress. It's a sign that is all about life force, channeling, practice, and utilization of it for self-exploration. Scorpio works to help hold the mysteries within while also mastering of the emotional and physical domains in addition to that. So it means it's like taking the energy, the channeling of that energy, and working with it to such a degree that you are learning to master those energies and taking things to the edge and beyond at times in order to know where that edge is. This sign is gifted with a very strong will, desires, passion, and depth of its own nature. Some of its shadow relates to the hidden nature of magic and the traumas of others' fears, I should say, of Scorpio over the last few thousand years. So it carries in a violation, if you will. All signs on some level have been either invalidated or violated in some fashion by the humanity, the patriarchy in particular, over the last few millennia. And this is a time of this in this turning of the ages where there's a major revelations around these archetypes and the fullness of their expression. So Scorpio is one of those where I feel like it's definitely going to be rebirthed in a way that hasn't been seen, and perhaps hopefully in a more healthy expression of it, where it's not only hiding everything in the recesses of its being, of its depths, in order to hide anything that others might perceive as, against humankind, the devil or whatnot. All right, let's take a look at this first eclipse and where it's located. April 30th. This is a partial solar eclipse. This is the first of 4 eclipses throughout 2022. The first of 2 in this eclipse season, which means only a portion of the sun's disk is covered by the Earth's moon. So it will only be visible in the southern part of South America. This means that the Earth, the sun, and moon aren't perfectly or exactly lined up to create the totality that can be witnessed at other times, like the Great American Eclipse that I witnessed here in Oregon in 2017. Typically, when there are total lunar eclipses in a season, there is usually not a total solar or annular eclipse taking place that season. So it's just something to keep in mind that the rhythm of the moon, the sun, and the earth shows us kind of glimpses of how things could be, where you get the totality of one version of the eclipse, but not the other in a season. But then the next season, it could actually create that. You can see here the eclipse and Uranus fairly close to each other. Now, Uranus is not visible, nor will it be visible during a partial eclipse. Usually, in order to really see Uranus, it has to be in opposition to the sun, under ideal conditions to be able to witness very faintly if you know exactly where to look. And you can see here, this night sky image representation is taken from something that I use called Stellarium, a free nonprofit organization software that you can call up all kinds of night sky images and varying locations across the planet. Well, this one, because it's South America, I took this, I believe, from Chile, and you can see the Ram constellation is actually upside down. So is the fish here on the right-hand side. Well, that's what it looks like down there. It's those, 85 to 90% of people that live north of the equator, see it, quote, right side up, if you will. But down below, it's the opposite. So it doesn't make it any more wrong or anything like that. It's just that's the way it is represented there. So it's just fascinating to see that every time I do an image of a South American eclipse or a night sky, this is what comes up. But those that are in Chile, and I'll show you kind of an image of that, where it's going to be here. Chile and Argentina, really just the edge, a little bit of the edge of Antarctica down here. And this is how much of the sun that's covered here. At its maximum, about half of the solar disk. And according to timeanddate.com, 52%, I believe Earth and Sky also shows it as 52%. So it's roughly around half of the sun's disk at its maximum will be covered. And that's right in the center of this, right? The southern tip of Chile there and Argentina, and just the very edge of that peninsula of South America, Antarctica coming through here. All right, again, this is April 30th and only visible in this part of the Earth. Okay, so the Sabian symbol is 11 Taurus. The Sabian symbols, for those that are not familiar with it, it's numbered from 1 to 30, whereas zodiacal degrees are numbered from 0 to 29. So we always add 1 to the degree in order to come up with the Sabian symbol. This is the symbol of this one is from Linda Hill's book, is a woman sprinkling long rows of flowers. And the keywords, patience and care, nurturing, fertilizing creativity, external evidence and of internal beauty, looking after small details to reap treasures later, tree of life, stopping to smell the roses, paying attention to detail, flower essences, sprinkling love and sustenance, watering and fertilizing, tending the soil, care and love. So I have a little short interpretation of that. It really speaks to itself and the care and attention to the beauty we find and knowing that the treasures await by our caretaking activities. I mean, flowers don't blossom when they come out of the soil immediately, such as what is showing in this picture. It's something that takes, the love of the earth and the sky and the sun to bring about these beautiful colors and smells and touches. So what we have here is just an amazing array of flowers that is symbolized by this particular eclipse. And so it's tapping into that Tauran beauty, a Tauran essence of what that archetype represents. Now, I mentioned before that there's that other piece to that Uranus brings in, the unexpected, the unpredictable, meaning like, what is our relationship to conveniences? And we certainly saw that during 2020 and 2021, when things were upside down, if you will, with the world, and continue to kind of be at the after effects of that particular time period. Well, this is, Earth's environment. The reason we can produce such beauty and this way is because it's in its natural state. Now, granted, there are artificial means to do this, but the sensual beauty of the earth in its organic, natural state, if we decide to just simply go to town and take all the resources from Earth, we wouldn't be able to take advantage of something like this, certainly not in this kind of a frame. And so this is requiring a better balance between humanity and our conveniences, as well as the health of the planet. All right, so here's what it looks like on the astrology chart here. can see that circled area of all the different planets that are kind of clustered together on this day on April 30th. And we could see also on that day, just so happens that Venus and Jupiter are in conjunction here in Pisces, only 3 degrees away from Neptune. So that's by itself like a whole different thread there that's throwing being thrown into the mix. But this eclipse, it connects us to the guidance of Uranus, but as described by the Sabian symbol, it's also a time of slowing down and the treasures that are around us. So Uranus will, here's where I got more here. This means even in a magnificent garden, the unexpected can arrive, taking us to a place of novelty, means something we've yet to experience. It is beyond our control, mind, and ego, and it operates at a celestial level. Yet even in the face of great change, it is important to attend to that beauty and treasures in our lives with love and care. So even in things that are turned upside down, there's almost we can call it a spiritual and or sacred touch into the act of helping a flower manifest itself, helping a plant, helping ourselves manifest and blossom in this world. So that eclipse is essentially designed, or we could say arriving at a time to help us arrive and helping us come to a place where we can blossom, where we can fully come into our own. And I think it's a really, beautiful expression of this eclipse. But there's also the other side of that. I talked about the whole, when it comes to conveniences, it could be a good time to look at our conveniences in our life and decide what we really don't need. And do we need things, arriving at our door that quickly? Do we need to have things on demand all the time? And how much energy are we burning and utilizing to make that happen, to manifest that? So these are inquiries we can make into ourselves. And Taurus is about slowing down, and it doesn't mean that we have to have the fastest delivery in the world. So that we can take our time, grow our food, peruse and take our time with what foods are available, and more about sustenance and sustainability. That is a lot about what Taurus can bring in to the fold here for all of us. All right, so this is also, as I've talked about in the other eclipse videos, this is the Soros 119 eclipse family for the solar eclipses. And the last eclipse that took place in this family was back in 2004, April 19th, and that happened just at the edge of Taurus at 2949 Taurus, and the next one will take place in 2040. So there's always an 18-year gap, 18.03 year gap between two eclipses of the same family. And the eclipse families can last anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 years. So this will go on until the year actually 2122. So this is just another 100 years and it'll be done. And so it's winding down. So from here on out, it's just going to be partial solar eclipses. There won't be any more total solar eclipses in this particular family. All right, so the next eclipse takes place May 15th. And where I live, it's on May 15th, in May 15th. But if you're in Europe or in Africa, it'll be on the 16th. So we could say May 15th and 16th. This is the second of 4 eclipses in 2022. It's a total lunar eclipse, and it means the total surface of the moon is blanketed in Earth's shadow. It will be visible primarily in the Americas, Greenland, Europe, and much of Africa. The moon will pass through and near the exact center of Earth's shadow during this eclipse. So it's not perfectly exact. There's some times where it passes directly in the center, and when it does hit directly in the center, and if the moon happens to be at more of its farthest point from the Earth, the eclipse can last pretty long at its maximum amount of being in the shadow. So when there are, as I talked about before, when there are total lunar eclipses in the eclipse season, there's usually not a total solar or annular eclipse taking place, such as this season. Now here's where it takes place. The eclipse here, if you do get a chance of you get to have that experience of seeing this on May 15th or 16th. And that would be in the early evening time here in the West Coast of North America, and in the mid-evening time on the East Coast, and then closer to the middle of the night and or early morning before sunrise in Europe and Africa, or if you happen to be in an island in the Atlantic Ocean. So just between the scales and the Scorpion constellation, next below the actual stars that represent the scales, Zubin el-Janubi, Zubin el-Shamali, and Zubin el-Aqrabi, and Brachium. All of those are stars that represent the scales. And so there's something about this eclipse that brings in that constellation more, and about balance and weighting of the heart, and weighting the heart with our soul, and what that means to our expression in this world, especially for those that have these eclipses maybe on a personal level, where they're impacting, if they've got Taurus or Scorpio in their chart, and they're and even Aquarius and Leo, if it's squaring that area, there could be some impact of these eclipses for you in your life on these days. And with eclipses, in shamanic astrology, we look at the eclipse window as far as each particular eclipse or phase of the moon. It's about a 3-day period. So the day before the eclipse and the day after the eclipse could also be that hold that eclipse energy in the environment. All right, so this is the eclipse map and where it's being seen across the Earth. And we see here, you can see all of South America is getting the maximum eclipse here. So it really is taking the fullness of that particular eclipse, May 15th, 16th. And half of North America is experiencing so all the phases of the eclipse, not just the totality of it, which is almost an hour and a half long, but the overall duration of 5 hours and 19 minutes. Then we have the West Coast and the central area of America and Mexico, Canada, which will experience most of the phases. And up until you get to about right here, you can see most of the totality in the Pacific Northwest and California and parts of the Mountain West here. And even eclipse down into the southern Pacific Islands. There's some islands down here that we'll be able to see some of the eclipse effects and the totality of it as well. All right. So the entire duration of this particular eclipse is 5 hours, 19 minutes. The duration of the totality is just about an hour and 25 minutes. So all the shaded areas here will experience some level of the phase. Even the Middle East will have a little bit of that, in Eastern Europe, and in the Scandinavia, we'll have a little bit of that too. Sabian symbol of 515, the total lunar eclipse. This is this one that is in Scorpio, where the moon is in Scorpio. And that's when I was talking about the where it's located. Scorpio, the sign of Scorpio is not in the Scorpion constellation. It's actually in the Scales constellation. So where this is roughly 25 to 26 degrees Scorpio. So if you happen to have any personal points, meaning moon, sun, any of the angles like the ascendant or midheaven, Mars, Venus, Mercury, lunar nodes, Jupiter, any of those points, this will definitely have some impact in their Scorpio Taurus axis. I mean, that's where it's going to be most personal for you guys, for all of you that are having in that kind of range. I would say anything within 6 to 10 degrees of that eclipse is going to be in that zone. All right, so the Sabian symbol of this May 15th is, we round up, of course, 1 degree or one number to 26 Scorpio because it's a Sabian symbol. And Linda Hill writes as the keywords of this symbol of Native Americans making camp in new territory, although she writes it as American Indian. So I use the more appropriate, and the one that I'm familiar with, the one that makes sense to me, is the Native Americans one. the keywords are settling in, walk-ins, having to learn the rules of being in a new environment, the need for freedom to one's life as one wants, concerns with territory, immigration, migration across countries, gathering together for family and community needs, tents, shelters, cohabitation, revering and protecting the environment, setting up camp, going walkabout, and respecting boundaries. So the symbolism of this Sabian symbol conveys a fresh start in exploration of new territory, branching out into a new environment and getting to know nature. On a broader level, it connects us to the mobility of humans across the globe and the desire to be moving onward beyond the known. So there's a little bit of a energy around exploration and a new frontier. And it's interesting. She mentions Native Americans who, in some parts of the Americas, here that there were some tribes that would winter in the warmer climates and summer in the what would be colder climates in the north. And so they had a particular way about them, or they would follow the food and follow the game. They would follow where the food was or where the water was. And it would depend on the year and the season and whether there was droughts happening or whether there was floods happening. So there was a bit of a natural migration that took place. And you saw that in more ancient cultures as well, even in across the globe in Europe and Asia and other places, that they had some migrations like that as well. So they were really tuned into the land and connected to the environment. It was a reciprocal relationship. They provided to each other. They cared for each other. Really, I would say very beautiful, and idealistically, we could just rinse and repeat and keep doing that and live in harmony with that. Of course, but changes occur, unexpected moments and tragedies and radical shifting can occur, and so there's cultures colliding with one another, and then we have a new paradigm that is formed. Other parts of this interpretation, hang on a second, would be before the eclipse family, is the eclipse. We have the moon with the nodes and the sun here. Now, when we had when they had the partial solar eclipse, that was around with the north node. And so it was a more future-oriented eclipse. This one, we tend to put the moon's south node here, wherever the moon is, would be the one that we focus upon. So there's more about the past here and the letting go of things. But we can see in this particular eclipse that Saturn and Vesta anchor this total lunar eclipse. And we can see that there's only a few degrees away, 1 degree away from the actual moon-sun aspect, full moon, and then only a couple of degrees away from where the nodes are. So Saturn plays a role. Saturn Aquarius plays a role in this particular eclipse just by looking at this chart. So when we see that eclipse rising, and we see, let's say we see the full moon rising in the east and the sun setting, the planet Saturn is below the horizon, and we won't be able to see it during this particular eclipse, but it's down below or down under, if you will, in the night sky. But we're not able to witness this. But this Saturn provides a grounded anchor, and I can share with you what this all means. There's a theme here of purging our toxins from the past, breaking out of the stagnancy of fighting to keep a hold of what we thought was, quote, normal. It is a cathartic eclipse, but one that with promise of new territory to be explored and some introspection of what once was. Anchoring this alignment, as I mentioned, is Saturn and Vesta in Aquarius, squaring the moon, sun, and nodes. This could mean a greater dose of reality that what we need to face as we realize it is time to be on the move or to settle elsewhere, physically as well as psychologically. So this can be a very profound transformational type of eclipse, one that helps us maybe even face our limits and boundaries and to come to terms with that. And I would say on some level fears too, with Scorpio being in the picture here. So the South Node can be a place where we can like purge out and push out what we need to. That's why I mentioned the purging of the toxins. So this I look at as a fairly profound eclipse, and I go back to the image of the scales here. There's a balance here. Maybe it's that purging that helps reset the balance in our lives and in on the collective or the community level. So this might be a way for that to express itself. At least idealistically, it can be done. But of course, with any of these eclipses, we can resist this. We can look at the unknown and call it the enemy and say, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm going to fight it. I'm going to push hard and battle and destroy what I can't face. And so that's where we have a lot of course, world problems that crop up in various parts of this beautiful Earth. And so it's something we all are in this boat together and to come to terms with. And this eclipse family is Soros 131. This one's a 1280 year eclipse family. And the last time there was a eclipse that took place in this family was back on May 4th, 2004. And that was 18 years ago. And there's a new one that takes place in another 18 years from now, May 26, 2040, at 5.5 or close to 6 degrees Sagittarius. So you can see it. It's not always going to be in the same sign because there's that 11-day, 18 years plus 11 days. So it usually spills over to one side, the next sign over or before, depending on what we're looking at here with the eclipses as they open up to. This cycle, this eclipse family began back in 1427, and it's going to go on for another almost 700 years until 2707. Again, it's a 1280 year process. So that's what I wanted to share about the eclipses. Again, I'm an Shamanic astrologer, and this has been Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms, episode 34. And I offer personal astrology readings, classes, events, and astrocartography. And I do show up for holistic events like fairs and expos as well in the Western US. My website's inspiralnexus.com. And I was trained originally through the Shamanic astrology paradigm from Daniel Giamario. And I've got an upcoming series about stars, the zodiacal stars, not the signs, but the stars themselves, that I'm co-facilitating with Caitlin Castell, called the Zodiacal Constellations and the Stars. And you can look at that from mystaralchemy.com. And feel free to send me any questions or comment. And please like and share and subscribe if this is something that you do like and want to share. Feel free to do that. And there'll be more videos coming your way in the near future. And I wish you all a very happy day and a peaceful eclipse season coming up. It's going to be, I believe, a fairly magical one, but I also believe very transformational too. So there's definitely going to be some sides to it that is, with that lunar eclipse could be a little more on the edgy side of it. I wish, again, everyone the best. Take care. Bye-bye.